I'm Greg. Welcome to Gregography, a channel dedicated to the things that I am interested in. I have two goals of this video. The first is to test out my new GoPro Black 9 camera. Specifically, I'll be testing out the stabilization feature called Hypersmooth 3.0. I'll be attaching the camera to my mountain bike handlebars, then going for a ride around my neighborhood and seeing what the footage looks like. My previous GoPro, the Hero 3, while it's a great camera, the footage it creates when attached to bicycles is kind of jarring and shaky and difficult to watch. So the new GoPros are supposed to create a really smooth footage. The second goal of my video will be the bike ride itself. My plan is to ride my bike around the perimeter of Ferndale, Michigan, as close as I can without crossing the border into a neighboring city. I chose Ferndale today because it's the city I live in, making it particularly convenient. Ferndale is located in southeast Oakland County, Michigan. It was incorporated as a city in 1927. The area is 3.88 square miles, and according to the 2020 census, the population is 19,190. Ferndale borders 6 other municipalities. To the east, it borders Hazel Park. To the south, it borders Detroit. To the west, it borders Royal Oak Township and Oak Park. And to the north, it borders Pleasant Ridge and the city of Royal Oak. I'll be starting my bike ride today in the northeast corner of the city. It is the closest Welcome to Ferndale sign to my house. My general plan will be to ride around the city clockwise, using roads, alleys, and sidewalks. Here we are at the border, about to enter Ferndale. I'll be tracking my ride using the Strava app today, so that afterwards I can see how well I stayed inside the border. So far this footage is really smooth. There's no wobbling or jarring of any kind. It's much better than the GoPro Hero 3. Let's see how it looks sped up 2 times. This looks just as good, if not better, than at normal speed. Let's try speeding it up by a factor of 4. Looking good, now 6 times. This footage is really steady and nice to watch. I'm going to call this test of the GoPro a success. Now to part 2 as we approach our first border. Let's take a closer look at the border with Pleasant Ridge. First, I will turn on roads. I'm going to break this bike portion of the video into 6 sections, one for each city that Ferndale borders. The northern border of Pleasant Ridge follows the backyard property line along the houses on Oak Ridge Street, crosses Woodward, continues along that same line. There is an alley here just east of Woodward behind some apartments. Otherwise, I will be staying on Oak Ridge itself. The border then goes north at Bermuda. Bermuda stops, it continues elsewhere, but the border continues along around these properties, across Fairwood, then either around or through these properties. It then crosses Victory Park, it crosses the train tracks, and then it crosses these buildings in this limited industrial zoning district, where it then meets 10 Mile at the border with Royal Oak. I forgot to mention that Oak Ridge is a dead-end street, so I have to go down and back in order to get to the end of it. Alright, I just realized I made my first mistake of the mission. As you can see, I should have gone a half a block north on Pinecrest to reach the Pleasant Ridge border, but I went straight across. At this point, I think I need a point system. How will I know if I've done a good job or not? Let's start with 10 points. We'll lose 1 point every time we leave the city. And because not getting as close to the border as I should have seems like a less severe penalty than actually crossing over the border, how about we just deduct half a point for something like what I just did on Pinecrest? This means that my current score is 9.5. We're approaching the part of the trip where the border passes through two streets, Fairwood and Sylvan. So I'll have to turn around in the middle of the street to make sure I don't cross into Pleasant Ridge. I thought the border was at the end of the building, but turns out it's sort of in the middle. With that loss of a point, I'm down to a score of 8.5. The border with Royal Oak runs along 10 Mile Road, which at this point is the eastbound I-696 service drive. Note that the border predates both the construction of I-696 and I-75. This is most evident in the northeast corner of the city, where these houses were all raised in order to make room for the freeway interchange. Lenox Street here used to go across 10 Mile into Royal Oak. A sidewalk was then built underneath the overpass so that people could travel from one neighborhood to the next. Here is a 1955 AAA road map of Metro Detroit. It's hanging up on my wall behind me. I specifically bought this map because it predates the Interstate Highway program. I'm going to zoom in on the northeast corner of Ferndale and show you the interchange between 10 Mile and Stevenson Highway is now the interchange between I-696 and I-75. And all four cities actually, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Hazel Park, and Madison Heights, all had some houses that had to be destroyed in order to make room for the interchange. As I mentioned before, Lenox Street used to go through all the way across 10 Mile into Royal Oak. There are some other interesting things in this map, but I am going to save that for another video. Well, unfortunately, due to construction, the sidewalk underneath the freeway to Royal Oak is closed. one last shot looking north on Lenox Street, which used to go all the way across into Royal Oak. So here I am on Lenox Street at the border with Ferndale and Hazel Park. I'll be going south on Lenox, over to Woodward Heights for 1 block, south on Pilgrim, over to 9 Mile for half a block, then south on West End until I get to 8 Mile with the border of Detroit. Now along the border with Detroit, I'll be heading west on 8 Mile, past the train tracks, past Woodward, past Livernois, past Pinecrest, until I get to the border with Royal Oak Township, which is just west of this property owned by American Axle. Now that I'm at the Royal Oak Township border, I have an important decision to make. There is no border road here, so I can either leave the city and stick relatively close to the border, or go farther away from the border but stay within the city of Ferndale. If I stay within the city, I would be leaving the border by about 410 yards. If I leave the city, I would only be leaving the border by 58 yards. So by leaving the city, I would actually be sticking closer to the border in terms of both distance and area. But my other part of the mission was to not leave the city. So what will I do? The border with Oak Park starts here, where Westview becomes Republic. I'll then be heading north on Republic until I reach 9 Mile. I'll be going about 3 blocks east until I reach Highland Street. The border then heads north between the properties that lie along Highland Street in Ferndale and Forest Street in Oak Park. But along the way it passes through the alley, through Earl Boulevard, through Lewiston, and back up to Drayton where we began. Oops, I crossed over the border briefly in the alley. With the loss of that point and the loss of the point at 8 Mile in Royal Oak Township, that means my score has dropped down to 6.5. I am now leaving Ferndale. I did it! I rode my bike around the whole city, only left a couple times, but I did it. Now stick around for my post-bike ride analysis. Hi again, thanks for sticking around. Welcome to the post-bike ride portion of this video where I overanalyze everything that I just did. So here's our border, and here is my GPS data. During the bike ride, I had mentioned 3 times leaving the city. Here at 10 Mile in Pleasant Ridge, here at 8 Mile in Royal Oak Township, and here in the 9 Mile alley in Oak Park. Starting with 10 points, losing 3, I'm down to 7. Also, according to the rules I established, I lost half a point here at Pinecrest for not going close enough to the border. After reviewing my GPS data, I found 2 other places where I should also lose half a point. I'm also going to deduct half a point for not being able to take that sidewalk under the underpass. It's not my fault, it's just the way the city was that day. Nonetheless, it was a location along the border that I didn't get to. I'm also going to deduct half a point here at Lewiston. After further review, I didn't get as close to the border as I had initially thought. Assuming that the border goes right down the middle of the road, this house is in Ferndale, so the border should go down halfway down the road here, but I stopped short of that. I went to the property line for this house, so I should have gone down this half in order to get to that part of the border. Here's my screen capture from earlier in the video. Note the fresh asphalt forms a straight line across the road. Losing those 1.5 points drops me down to 5.5, which doesn't seem like a really good score. What good would a scoring system be without bonus points? I'll give myself bonus points every time I get closer to the border by going along some kind of non-public location. For this mission, I only did it one time. I went through this Hertz car rental parking lot, so it's a private business I cut through. And my initial rule did not include private businesses, so this would be a bonus half of a point, which brings my score back up to 6. My final score today for my first perimeter attempt of Ferndale will be 6. There are a few other rule changes I want to discuss, but nothing that'll affect today's score. So here are my point markers, lost points, bonus points, and things to consider in the future. The biggest change will be that I will also include parks and schools as locations I'll ride my bike or walk along in order to stay close to the border. Had I done that, then I would have gotten much closer to the border along this elementary school. There's also a park here called Oak Ridge Park. It's not listed in the Parks and Rec website, but nonetheless it is a municipal park. I can also probably get closer to the border along the alley and sidewalk here. I'll also consider just going straight across the island on Woodward for a bonus point. There's an alley / parking lot behind this apartment building. There's a business parking lot here I could get closer to. I could also go along the border in Victory Park, almost to the train tracks. There are a few business parking lots along this stretch of the border. And then I also noted that I did not go all the way along to the sidewalk corner here. There seems to be two 10 miles. This is 10 mile, and then this is also 10 miles. So while I was on 10 mile, there is a sidewalk to get a little bit farther along the way. I will try to do this at a time when the construction is over so that I can take the sidewalk underneath the interchange, but I'll have to wait till that's done. There really wasn't much along Hazel Park that can be done better. There are 5 sidewalks that go between Detroit and Ferndale, and I probably should take them at least to the halfway point. So there's a sidewalk at Fair Street, 2 at Woodward, and 2 at Livernois. One minor point to consider is when I leave the city, am I obligated to return as close as I can at any time? Because there was this half a block, not even half a block, like 3 houses I could have cut back in. But the big question for today is whether or not I should have left the city or not. For this bike ride, I felt I should be truer to the border rather than truer to staying within the city itself. So that's why I went outside of the border. But maybe I'll do this another time where I cannot leave the city under any circumstances whatsoever, and then I'll take the long way around here. And there really wasn't anything else along the Oak Park border that I need to consider for next time. One of the main reasons I made this video is I plan to use this channel to make a series of videos about Michigan geography, which will include a lot of videos about all of the enclaves and exclaves in our state. Therefore, my next 2 videos will feature me riding my bike around the city of Lathrop Village, which is enclaved by Southfield, and the city of Centerline, which is enclaved by Warren. So stay tuned for those adventures. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.